So I came in here today, I wanted to do sets of 30 and I decided to do 40 kilos. So I took 40 kilos, warmed up with the bar, took 40 kilos and ended up doing 5 sets of 30. Now originally I was kind of thinking about doing 3 sets of 30 because in the previous couple of days, I've done a total of 100 reps working sets with when I was doing 60 kilos and then before that 100 kilos. So with 100 kilos I did 10 sets of 10, with 60 kilos I did 5 sets of 20. And then today I thought, okay, let's do like 3 sets of 30. That's kind of around the mark for 100 reps. But then I did the third set, and I thought, man, I've got more in me. Like I don't feel like I'm done. And so then I ended up doing 2 more sets. So that was 150 reps all up. So then I kind of started thinking to myself, like, what is these arbitrary numbers that I'm picking? Like, why 100? Why is such a fixed number of 100? You kind of started from doing 10 sets of 10 with 100 kilos. That was real heavy work. That was really, really heavy work. That kind of took a lot out of me. And then when the kind of 2 days after that, I did 5 sets of 20 with 60 kilos, and that was a lot less heavy work. Like I thought that was all right. So as you go down in your, I guess, 1 rep max percentage of your 1 rep max weight, I guess your total volume should be more because you're using less weight. But for that day, I ended up using the same repetitions, total reps as the previous day, and the day was obviously easier. So then coming in today, I was like, okay, let's do 40 kilos for 3 sets of 30, and I did that, and I was like, man, I don't feel like I've done a good enough session. So as you go down in the weight, your volume should be going up to kind of have to elicit some sort of response from your tissue. Imagine doing 90% for 100 repetitions, right? If you did 100 singles at 90, you would be like hospitalized, man. I mean, that's insanity. No one can do that. So as you kind of go down that ladder, you should kind of do more volume. How much volume? I'm not sure. If you think about some of the greats, some of the examples that you kind of bumped into in your reading and kind of being around this game, you might have heard that Mike Tyson used to do 2,000 repetitions every single day with just bodyweight squats. The stories go that he never really used to touch any weights at all. He was a 21, I think, or 19, whatever he was, the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history. He never touched a weight before that. I think he was somewhere between like 25 and 30, kind of later on in his career, that he started playing with some weight. And you know how stocky and strong he was. Now, granted, he's a genetic marvel. I mean, that dude was like 12 years old knocking out guys that were 25. That's a different type of beast. But the reason I'm telling you this is because I want to emphasize the value of just doing body weight. A lot of you guys are stuck in parts of the world right now where you can't get to the gym. And I've said many times in the comments, speaking to you guys, don't sweat it, man. Mike Tyson was the heavyweight champ from doing this bodyweight stuff. There is a way. If you have a fire in your belly, work it out, man. Just bang out these sets. Now that I think about it, man, like if Mike Tyson was ever inclined to peak his strength, if you put him on a 12-week program where he had an intensification phase and then a peaking phase, in squatting, I reckon he would have had a much better, top single than me. Absolutely, I think that, because if for somebody that can do 2,000 freaking bodyweight squats every single day for 5 sets for 5 days of the week, and that is a beast. That is a beast. I made a video a few months ago in regards to this, and I just think, if you have the muscular endurance to complete that many repetitions, I know for a fact you're a strong dude. A lot of guys get it twisted that doing a set of 50, improving a set of 50 rep max is not going to carry over to your 1 rep max. I think that's false. I think you will. If you just give it some time and you pick that strength that you made in the 50 rep range, you're getting stronger. This idea that the body is like a 2-speed system, either you're going for 1 rep max or you're doing for endurance. No, it's a crossover. Like these muscle fibers, there's a crossover, right? Like your type 1 muscle fibers don't just go to sleep if you're doing a 1 rep max. They don't just completely deactivate and half of your freaking muscle is flaccid and the other half is just working. It doesn't work like that. So I think all rep ranges matter. So today I was doing sets of 30 and I was working hard. In fact, I've said to you guys many times over that I actually find these high rep sets harder than 1 rep. Like it's just, I don't know, man. Like when I do like 85, 90, 95% or even 100% of my 1 rep max, I just feel it's like a transient thing. It just, brace a little bit, it's a momentary kind of rise in blood pressure and comfort. You're clenching your core, but then it passes really easily. When you're doing a set of 30 or 50, man, like you are there in the hurt locker for a while. I just feel like it just builds that mental resilience. It builds that dog in you. It really does. Like, this is just a mental thing. And then obviously the work capacity that you develop with doing high repetitions will allow you to do like 10 sets of 5 at 80%. You know what I mean? Like, you just have that big reserve to train in the strength, the agreed upon strength repetition range. So I don't know. I just think about this stuff all the time. I think to myself, man, it's all about the reps, man. Just like I've said to you guys, constantly telling you guys, Steph Curry can shoot the basketball really well because it's reps. I feel like it's a race, or how many repetitions you can do in a year. I think there's a relationship between that and how many gains you make, how much gains you make. I really feel that. Obviously, we're all different. Some people look at weights and they put on muscle. I just feel like maybe my developmental years were spent running a lot, and maybe my muscle fiber type kind of evolved into more like a type 1 muscle fiber instead of type 2, 2A. But I think the role of a lifter, especially if you're kind of training yourself, coaching yourself, is to experience all the rep ranges, experience all of them, and then work out exactly where you stand. What gives you the most kind of bang for your buck? And I don't know why or how, but I just feel like I'm moving in the right direction every time I incorporate these high repetitions. So in the coming weeks, I hope to increase my 10, 20, 30 rep max. They're not going to be done in kind of AMRAP kind of sets. I'm going to try and kind of sneak up on it. So I'm going to try and maybe add a couple of more sets every time I kind of come back to the weight. There's many different types of like progressive overload. You can play with your time, rest time. You can play your intensity that you're working with, how much weight you're going, how much volume you're doing. So there's a few things you can kind of play with. So I'm going to try and do some progressive overload. Obviously, intertwined in all of that is going to be a whole lot of auto regulation, because I am a shift worker. There's a whole lot of variables there. So some days I won't be able to be ready to kind of tackle a big day. But right now I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really, really healthy. It's going in the right direction. But I kept thinking about, as I was doing this, this whole thing about what's accepted range for working sets. I know that the Russians did a massive study back in the day. I think it was Vukashansky or Zaitorsky. I can't remember. There was a bunch of dudes that were kind of like interpreting their data, where they followed athletes for 4 Olympic cycles, and they studied what the gold, silver and bronze medalists, what sort of like rep ranges, percentages of their 1 rep max, where the most of their training time was spent, and something like 60 or 70% of their time was spent with 70 to 85% of their 1 rep max. And so that's where this data comes from. We know that that's the most effective way to put on strength. And then out of that, the same thing happened. The optimal kind of volume per session is kind of between 20 and let's say 35 repetitions all up. If you think about 5x5, 3 sets of 10, if you think about small, of all of those kind of fall in that rep range. But those are between 70 and 85%. So what do you say for stuff that's kind of below? 50%, 40, 30%. You can't be doing 25 repetitions with 40 kilos if your 1 rep max is 200. That's an ineffective training session. So there's a whole lot of things there to kind of think about. But yeah, basically right now I'm going to try and do all of them. Obviously you can't really touch your heavy training max when you've got days when you're doing 150 repetitions of say 30% of your 1 rep max. It's kind of hard to do that. But it's good. I feel like I'm getting a good training response when I do high volume. Every single time, I've mentioned this, I feel like a broken record. Every single time I have this type of training periods, I improve. The only trouble is because you're doing such a large amount of work in the squatting, it becomes very, very difficult to have any sort of accessories after that. So yesterday I tried to do good mornings, and after a few sets I realized this wasn't going to be good, man, because the day before I did a whole bunch of high rep sets with squats. So if you're doing high rep squats, kind of like a 20 rep squat program with a milk and squat program, you basically need to limit everything else you're doing. It is very, very taxing. There's a lot of things to kind of take into account. So just be mindful of that. Like if you're doing fast sets of 5, then there's space to do your deadlifts. There's space to do your bench press and overhead press and whatever. But if you're doing 150 freaking reps with 30 or 40% of your 1 rep max squats, that's a whole lot of work, especially if you're going to be doing it in 2 days time again. So lots of things to kind of take into consideration there. It certainly kind of plays into my kind of mentality really well, because I'm all about the squat, so I can afford to do this. But if you're a powerlifter and you want to go in and you want to kind of, basically it's a game of your total number, right? Your total. So you don't want to have an anemic bench press and anemic deadlift and then like a really good squat, because that's not the sport. The sport is to have all 3 lifts going. Although, having that said, if you do a lot of squatting, your deadlift is going to also travel in the right direction, but then the benching is going to suffer. So it's all about how many recovery points you have and when you want to pluck them in. For me, and my struggles throughout the squat program with hip pain and whatever, I just want to get the squat moving in the right direction, get that thing going, put all my resources in that, and then when that thing starts rolling, then I can kind of afford to kind of pluck some of these other movements. All right, guys, another session. Oh, and by the way, before I let you guys go, a few days ago, I went on the podcast with Seeker Strength. That was a blast. Really cool thing. Really kind of appreciate those fellas for inviting me. So if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. The fellas are amazing, experts in the field. I watch those videos a lot. Lots of stuff to learn there. So go check that out. If you enjoy my content, I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy their content. Really cool dudes. All right, guys, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out. Later.